Welcome to Chautauqua People. My name is Ira Cooperman, and our special guest today is Greg Peterson. I call Greg Mr. Jamestown because he's so involved in so many things here in Jamestown, but he's also a partner in Philips Lytle, the largest law firm in the area. In fact, he's been with the law firm for 37 years. Greg, couldn't you get another job?
I've tried, I've looked, but to no avail.
That's pretty good. Well, Greg is listed among the best lawyers in America, and he also is the husband of a wife who named Cindy, who also is an attorney, and the father of 3 children, including one who is a member of the Detroit Tigers Major League Baseball Club. Now, before people get mad at me and try to figure out which position your child plays, you want to explain your child who is a member of the Detroit Tigers Baseball Club?
Sure. Now, she's the assistant general counsel for the Detroit Tigers, and in that role does an awful lot of corporate compliance, but also at year-end, often the Tigers will submit themselves to arbitration, and she'll assist in writing the briefs for those arbitrations, which, by the way, look like about this when they submit them. So that's her role.
I bet it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, sure.
And she just got married recently, too.
Yep, to a Brazilian, and so they watched the World Cup with a vengeance.
Wow, that's great. So you attended Meadville, no, I was going to say Meadville Academy, but that's wrong. Allegheny College, and I know you graduated Phi Beta Kappa, which is pretty good, and then you went on to Dickinson School of Law. Did you always want to be a lawyer?
You know, my dad was a businessman, and when I was at Allegheny College, I took economics, and I always thought combining law with just a business background would ultimately lead to something which was of interest to me. My comp was involved in baseball and economics, the reserve clause for us old-timers. So yes, that was something always of interest, that I wanted to be a lawyer. I didn't know where I would be, but as would have it, here I am back home in my native home.
Yeah, you were originally from Jamestown. Did you go to Jamestown High School?
Jamestown High School, graduated the class of 1969.
Wow, wow. That's pretty interesting. You, I know you're very involved in a lot of activities here. You're the legal counsel for the Village of Falconer. You're chairman of the Jamestown Jammers Advisory Board. And for those of us who don't know too much about the Jamestown Jammers, that's the Pittsburgh Pirates minor league baseball club right here in Jamestown.
Right. Jamestown has been in what is now known as the New York Penn League for 75 years. And the current Jamestown Jammers is affiliated with the Pittsburgh Pirates as a player development contract, and the franchise itself is owned by the Rich family, which is Bob Rich Jr., Mindy Rich. They actually own the franchise in Jamestown, and then they have a player development contract with the Pittsburgh Pirates.
That's great. I know you have a real interest in baseball besides just the fact that there's a local team here. Some people say that you've helped to save minor league baseball for Jamestown, and you've been involved. How many years? Can you think of how many years you've been involved with the Jammers?
Well, it really goes back to when I came. I used to, as a child, go down to the game, but when I got done with law school, I came back, started practicing, and worked with the then Jamestown Expos, which was affiliated with the Montreal Expos, and they were here for a long period of time, and was intimately involved the time period when the Expos, which again was owned by Montreal.
Right.
Montreal decided they were going to move the franchise to Burlington, Vermont. So we had no franchise for a short period of time. That's when I made a few well-placed phone calls, I guess, to the Riches, who I knew, to see if their franchise, which was located in Niagara Falls, might be available to come to Jamestown. And within about 3 or 4 days, and lots of phone calls and lots of gymnastics, we've got the Niagara Falls franchise to move to Jamestown, and for the last 20-some years, that's what's happened. So whatever vignettes about saving baseball, that sort of relates to that time period.
It sounds like you really did it, and we're glad the Jammers are here. They're a lot of fun. A lot of us enjoy going to the Jammers games. It's the sort of thing that, you know, small-town America does really well, I think.
Well, what's wonderful, Ira, is Jamestown can be plenty proud of the fact it has professional baseball here. There's only about 150 professional baseball teams in the country.
Right.
The Jamestown economic region is ranked about 450th in just as far as demographics.
Right.
So to be in that 150 range, that means there's 300 communities bigger than ours, some of them with empty stadiums, that would love nothing better than to have professional baseball. So to be able to say that the Nellie Foxes, the Gary Carters, the Andres Galarragas, the Randy Johnsons started here in Jamestown, New York.
They all came through this club, yeah.
That's right. That's kind of fun.
It is. In addition to some players that came through the club, isn't it true that there are also some Hall of Famers that actually are originally from the Jamestown area, people that you did some research? Is Nellie Fox one of those people?
Nellie Fox was the first person to go from Jamestown to Cooperstown.
Wow.
And we had a chance to work with his widow to get some additional information on Nellie Fox. Gary Carter's another one who has likewise gone from here.
Right.
Jim Leland, who will probably go to Cooperstown someday,
Famous
started
manager.
year one
Right.
in 1965 in Jamestown. So there are a lot of those interesting stories.
Right. I understand you've even done research on somebody who played for the Boston Red Sox in 1912, in the World Series in 1912. And was he originally from the Jamestown area?
Faulkner, New York, where I'm the attorney. A gentleman by the name of Hugh Bedient.
Right.
Hugh Bedient was 1908, caught the attention of the Boston Red Sox because in a semi-pro game, Faulkner against Corey, Pennsylvania, he struck out 42 batters.
Wow.
Now, your inquisitive mind, Ira, is going to say, how does that happen?
Yes, how does
It was a
that?
26-inning game, and Hugh Bedient broke all kinds of strikeout records, and his arm must have been pretty sore the next day. But because of that, he caught the attention of the Boston Red Sox. In 1912, as a rookie, he became part of the world champion Boston Red Sox of that year. Played really 4 years before his arm went, because probably the Corey game. But one of his teammates in 1914 was a guy named George Herman Ruth.
Right.
And so we did a lot of research on Hugh Bedient, and he, during the 1912 World Series, won a game, saved a game, and pitched a game to a tie with Christy Mathewson.
Great.
So a guy from Faulkner, New York, who was a rookie at that time, that's kind of a great story.
That is. That really is. And when did he get into the Hall of Fame? When did you make it?
Well, the Chautauqua County Sports Hall of Fame is where he is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Rather than the Hall.
Yeah.
Well, and I know you've done research on Babe Ruth being here in the area. I understand he was barnstorming someplace in Chautauqua County many years ago. Is that true?
You're doing a lot of research here, Ira. 1921. 1921, a little background. I had always heard that Babe Ruth had played in Chautauqua County, Celeron Park, and they hit one into the lake. And I thought that was urban legend.
Sure.
And then I said, you know, I got to dig into this. So I did. I did a lot of research and found that it occurred in 1921 after the World Series. And Babe Ruth put together a barnstorming team that included Bob Musial, who was a big player for the Yankees at the time, among others, and came to Celeron and played. Wow. And in fact, during batting practice, did hit one into the lake.
Wow.
And the next day he went to Warren, Pennsylvania. Now the backstory, because you're an inquisitive type guy, Ira, you want to drill into this.
Yes.
Is in the 1921 World Series they played the New York Giants. The Yankees were up 3-1,
right.
and Ruth, trying to steal second, slid, hurt himself. Did not play the rest of the series.
Right.
Out.
Right.
And what happened was the Giants won.
Right. The John McGraw Giants won.
John McGraw Giants won the 1921 World Series. Well, Babe Ruth had set up this barnstorming team,
right.
and that was all scheduled. So here's a guy that did not complete the last 3 games of the 1921 World Series. Right. 2 days later, he's in Celeron, New York, hitting balls into the lake. And most interesting to me was the next day in Warren, Pennsylvania, he pitched.
Wow.
Now, that caught the attention of the newspapers Like, what's going on here?
Right.
Is barnstorming more important
Than playing.
than
sure.
playing? So Kennesaw Mountain Landis, the new commissioner, who was commissioner after the Black Sox scandal,
Right.
told Ruth, "You're done. You can't play anymore. You can't play." And in fact, the rule that Landis put, if you were in a World Series, if you were a participant in the World Series, you cannot go barnstorming. That was his law. And so Ruth said, "No, I don't care what the commissioner said.
Yeah.
I'm bigger than the commissioner."
Yeah, he felt that way.
And because of the World Series story, he just took off. So he played here, spoke here, and there was all this at the time,
Right.
you know, the
A lot of
commissioner
attention.
saying, "You're going to be banned for life." So finally, he played Jamestown, or Celeron Park, Warren, two more, and finally the
Gave
commissioner caught up with Binghamton, as did Miller Huggins and
His manager.
Jake Rupert,
His owner.
his owner, and said,
Right. That's
"No
it.
mas.
That's it.
You're destroying the team." Well, he quit. Now, Landis gave him a half-year suspension. So the beginning of the 1922 season, there was no Babe Ruth.
Really?
Absolutely, because he played here in Celeron, New York.
Wow.
So I did a little piece, and that was picked up by the Society of American Baseball Research.
Saber. Yeah, that's great. You have any idea how many people were here in Celeron Field to witness Babe Ruth hitting that ball out?
You know, I think the max they could have at the time of the stadiums were maybe 2,500.
Yeah.
But it was certainly big news.
Yeah. I've done some research about John McGraw in Truxton, and I mean, back in the 20s and 30s especially, town teams were very popular. Sometimes a company would own the team, sometimes just a bunch of guys, but certainly it was very Americana, and that's something that we believe here in Chautauqua County, I know. So, but you've been involved in so many things, not just baseball. One of the things that I know you're most proud of is being a co-founder of the Robert H. Jackson Center. I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about how, first of all, what the Robert H. Jackson Center is, and second of all, how it got started, how you first helped to create this special center.
Well, the Robert H. Jackson Center, located in Jamestown, New York, is designed to advance the legacy of Justice Robert H. Jackson. You'd say, why? Why bother? That's your question. And the question is, and the answer to that question is Jackson is the recent answer to a Jeopardy question, named the only person in the history of the United States to be Attorney General, Solicitor General, and a Justice of the Supreme Court. And he's from here. He was born in Warren County, Pennsylvania, but at age 5 came to Chautauqua County and never went to college.
Right.
Never graduated from law school.
You could be a lawyer those days
You
without...
could read for the law, and he
Amazing.
read for the law. And of course, on top of that resume, which we heard even today, was the fact that he was the chief American prosecutor at the Nuremberg trial.
Immediately after World War II.
After World War II. And so, you know, all of that combined sort of grabbed me as a historical fact. I also, you wonder why, it became clear that our area had lost that corporate memory of Justice Jackson. He died in '54. So those people who were contemporaries had passed away. So it was, I felt it was important to pause, reflect,
Sure.
and to create something which would advance that legacy. And since we're now 14 years old, we've had Chief Justice Rehnquist, Chief Justice Roberts, Andrew Day O'Connor, Anthony Kennedy, you know, Justice Ginsburg, a lot of folks come through the Jackson Center.
Right.
And we work very closely with Chautauqua Institution.
It's amazing when you think of how small Chautauqua County is in terms of number of people, how small Jamestown is, to have an institution that attracts the Chief Justice of the United States, the greatest legal minds in this country, and not just once in a while, not just on the 60th anniversary of Justice Jackson's death, but it seems that you do this year after year after year. It's amazing. It really is.
I want you to speak sometime, Ira, then I know I've arrived.
Thank you very much. Well, I think it's wonderful. You've made, I know, a lot of videos having to do with the Jackson Center and having to do with the Holocaust and the Nuremberg trials. But now I understand you've made some videos of a new project, videotaping the survivors of World War II, some veterans of World War II. How's that going?
I read an article probably in November, which talked about the fact that there's less than 1 million World War II veterans alive. And that struck me. One of the things we do at the Jackson Center in relation to the center is interview individuals who are part of Jackson's world. And we have hundreds of interviews. But I felt it was important from a community perspective to pause, reflect, and gather those stories. So it's really since December 7th. It turned out serendipitously that was the day we started, but of course, Pearl Harbor. And we contacted an individual who was at Pearl Harbor. And he was our first, Danny O'Brien, to get their story. In many cases, it's the first time they've talked about their World War II experience.
Right.
So now we have almost 80 interviews of World War II veterans, and I would encourage any of your listeners, Ira, that have family members who are World War II vets and would be interested in sharing the story. We would certainly love to have that and to capture that, because I think it's critical.
Where could they contact you or somebody else at the Jackson Center to be videotaped for a World War II project?
Yeah, call the Jackson Center, and that's 483-6646.
Okay, that's great. Maybe we'll repeat that number at the end of the interview, because that's really wonderful. By the way, where is the Jackson Center located in Jamestown?
It's located on the corner of Prendergast and 4th. It takes a whole block. It's the old Scottish Rite Consistory building, and 19,000 square foot building, can't miss it.
Right, no, it's a wonderful place. I've been there many times, and I remember when you had Willie Horton there. That was a lot of fun, a former Detroit Tiger. Yep. That was really great, and there have been a lot of really wonderful programs that you put on at the Jackson Center. So I would encourage everyone to, by all means, visit the Jackson Center. Even if you have visited in the past, come back again, because the exhibits change, right?
Absolutely. We have a brand new exhibit, in fact, where it's on the life of Mary Willard. Mary Willard was a Jamestown High School teacher who had taken a young Robert Jackson, who had just graduated from Frewsburg High School in 1909, did what we would now refer to as a 13th year in Jamestown. Mary Willard worked with him reading the classics, reading and forensics and debate, and as a result really ratcheted up his intellectual curiosity. Well, here's a whole story on Mary Willard, her impact on Robert Jackson, because he talked about it all his life. And what that's precipitated is everybody has had some influence in their lives.
Sure.
It could have been a high school, grade school, college professor. And to be able to pause, reflect on the teaching profession and how sometimes you don't appreciate it or can even articulate it, but they really set you in the right direction. So that's what this exhibit's about. There are many other exhibits which are permanent exhibits at the center. So you're right, I commend anybody to come down and take a look.
By all means. So since we're talking about what were some of the most influential people in Robert Jackson's life, who are some of the most influential people in your life? Who set you on the path of coming back to Jamestown and being so involved in the community that you are?
Well, it goes without saying my parents were incredibly influential in a lot of things, whether it's the skill sets of just work ethic, etc. But that aside, my tutor, really as a lawyer, was a guy named Sherry Cadwell. Sherry Cadwell represented an awful lot of the businesses here. He had that economic sense and a very pragmatic sense of how to practice law. And every time I see him, he's still alive, he's in his late 80s, and I hug him and say, you know, you're the guy that...
got you going.
Well, not only from the legal perspective, but also community, that it's important to give back. You know, pick and choose what you're going to do, but whatever you do it very well. And Sherry has instilled that in me, and he's one of those incredible people in your life.
Well, clearly it worked, because you've received a number of awards. In fact, we don't have time to mention all the awards that you've gotten, but I want to point out that you've gotten community service awards from the Jamestown Bar Association, from the Jammers, from Chautauqua County Chamber of Commerce, And I know you've done an awful lot of things for the community. In addition, you've gotten a lot of awards from the state as well, New York State Bar Association. But I wonder if, despite all those awards, if maybe the thing that you've enjoyed the most was becoming an inductee into the Chautauqua Sports Hall of Fame.
That was ranked right up there. Frank, I didn't see that coming. I was a good athlete, not a great athlete.
What did you play?
I was played sports, general sports, but football was my sport. And played all the way through college. I was a 4-year Letterman captain of the football teams, high school and college, but I was no All-American. I think I can only surmise, but why I was inducted was a body of work which dealt principally with preserving the history of our area. Right. Spending an awful lot of time and fun at interviewing folks who are part of the professional baseball world here, football, and making sure that we show it and display it. I think what's critical is that you don't simply take pictures or take videos and put them in
the history box or something.
Someplace and long since forgotten. And if you don't find a mechanism to display it, right, you're not doing anybody a service. So I've done an awful lot of that, whether it's working with the public access channels or putting up on YouTube, a variety of things. It's just gotten a lot of attention.
Well, I think certainly saving minor league baseball for Jamestown ranks right up there for the Sports Hall of Fame. And I know there's some other well-known people in the Hall of Fame too. Who are some of the other well-known people in the Chautauqua Sports Hall of Fame?
Well, they have a stadium named after a guy named Russ Dietrich.
Right.
He's certainly in the Hall of Fame. You have guys like Nellie Fox. You have the guys who were the real pioneers of NASCAR racing. The first national champion was a guy here in Chautauqua County, Don Rexford.
I know NASCAR is popular here too, but not everybody necessarily knows who Nellie Fox was. We didn't actually mention that before. We just said that he's in the Baseball Hall of Fame, and I know you helped to get him voted into the Baseball Hall of Fame. But Chicago White Sox, second baseman?
Second baseman, Chicago White Sox. When he was here in 1944, he was actually signed through the Philadelphia Athletics. And Connie Mack sent him here. He was a center fielder.
Wow.
Yeah, he was a short guy, center fielder, but he could hit well. He was a leadoff batter. They put him on loan to Jamestown. So this was one of his first
stops.
Lost location was here. And he always talked very proudly of being in Jamestown. But Nellie Fox, I got involved strangely through a bunch of lawyers in Chicago to assist in their campaign to get Nellie Fox inducted into the Cooperstown National Baseball Hall of Fame. Well, and that was a big day.
It is a big deal. It really is. I know you've gotten a lot of awards for some of your pro bono work. What are some of the nonprofit organizations that you've worked for besides the Jackson Center and the Jammers? What are some of the other organizations locally that you've helped out?
Well, for many, many years, I was on the board in various activities with the Resource Center. This is a large, significant not-for-profit organization that assists the developmentally disabled. Big fan of it. When I started on the board, we were back in '77. We were proud that we actually had our first budget, which it was $1 million. Like, wow, that's
first
a lot.
time, yeah.
And now, recently, they adopted a budget. It was $100 million.
Wow.
Exactly. And so it's a great success story, but it's taken an awful lot of people, an awful lot of time, and incredibly devoted individuals. Fortunately, none of my children have developmental disabilities, but I work a lot with family members who do, and they're so dedicated. It's really remarkable. Another organization which I was there at the early stages was the Chautauqua Region Community Foundation. I was its president for 5 years, on the board for 10.
Right.
And that's really an organization which has grown from, I remember when it finally hit 10 million, it was magic. We were going to have a circus over that. It's now over 80 million. And it's just one of those few. And there are others, but I think it's critical for anybody who's in this community, especially if you make a living out of this, that you do spend the time, effort, energy to give back. Right.
No, I agree. You've certainly been a good example of someone giving back, no question about it. I know you're also very involved with the Chautauqua Institution. We see you a lot on the grounds at Chautauqua. What's your feeling about the Chautauqua Institution as far as its importance to Chautauqua County?
I think there are two incredibly critical linchpins for the success of our area: Chautauqua Lake and Chautauqua Institution. It's always incredibly not amazed because I see it go on, but what the number of people that come in here, the economic impact of Chautauqua Institution, the quality of the programming, it's unbelievable. And I commend anybody if you get the opportunity, certainly, to go on the grounds. A tremendous amount of capital investment has been placed on the grounds, and they constantly evolve to succeed and exceed what they've done years before. So I compliment Chautauqua generally. Tom Becker is an incredible leader, and we are lucky to have that particular asset in Chautauqua County.
You're right. We only have about another minute left, but what are you planning next? What are your future projects? What are you thinking about? Something that you haven't done yet, but you'd like to do?
Oh, I'd love to have a forum here of justices of the Supreme Court. I'd love to have more than one, which is always great to have one. I mean, trust me.
But wouldn't that be great?
That would be terrific. I had a chance to interview Chief Justice Roberts last year here at Chautauqua with his boss, who was Barrett Prettyman Jr. That was a hoot. That was a hoot. Sure. And they're just to be able to humanize those folks that otherwise you just read about in the paper. So I would look forward to that day, and also getting you down to play some piano at the Jackson Center.
Thank you. Happy to come anytime, but believe me, my piano skills are not up to your lawyer skills at any rate. At any rate, it sounds like you've got a full plate, and you continue to work really hard at everything. I think that's really, really wonderful, and I think Jamestown area is very fortunate to have you here. Hopefully, your law firm will keep you here for maybe another 37 years or so. I know, and your firm has offices besides Jamestown. You have offices where? In Buffalo and Rochester?
Yeah, the hub of Philips Lytle is in Rochester, or in Buffalo, and then it's Rochester, New York City, Albany, Garden City. So we're pretty well throughout New York State.
So if anybody needs a good lawyer, they can contact you, and you'll be happy to represent them, right?
We got them covered.
Absolutely. Well, Greg, it's been a pleasure to have you on Chautauqua People. I hope you'll return again so we can discuss more of your accomplishments, and maybe next time, how about bringing Cindy with you?
Okay.
Wouldn't that be great?
I'd be delighted.
I want to thank everybody for watching. We have a lot more programs coming up on Chautauqua People. John V., our producer, is planning a very busy schedule for the next coming week, so if you get a chance, tune in, keep in touch, and thank you again for watching, and goodbye.